Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be unpacking a highly relatable and honestly surprisingly anxious piece of text simply titled Time Flies. Have you ever found yourself doing literally anything other than the one thing you actually need to be doing? Yeah, us too. Today, we're going to trace the exact psychological steps of a failed deadline. We're taking a magnifying glass to the anatomy of procrastination, and together we're going to map out the very specific stages of this mental trap.
Okay, let's just dive right into the text with this incredibly revealing line. I reorganized the junk drawer by color and size. I mean, come on, that perfectly captures how we behave when we're actively avoiding our responsibilities, right? It's not that we're doing nothing, it's that we're doing the exact wrong things with an almost absurd level of dedication. By color and size, that is some serious commitment to not doing your actual work.
And that leads us to the core question driving our explainer today. Why exactly do we do our most pointless chores when we have the absolute most important work to do? We're going to explore this exact phenomenon by treating this poem as a chronological case study of a procrastinator's descent into avoidance. We'll follow the narrator step by step to really understand the mechanics of why we sabotage our own time.
All right, our subject's journey begins with stage 1, the art of avoidance, focusing specifically on physical distraction.
Verse 1 breaks down into 4 distinct, escalating actions. First, the narrator checks an empty, completely clean fridge. Then, they're sharpening pencils. Next, they water the fern. And finally, they just end up watching a candle that refuses to burn. Notice how these 4 chronological steps represent an escalation of completely mundane physical actions? They're undertaken for one reason only: to avoid starting the actual work. The narrator is frantically interacting with their physical environment just to escape the digital reality of their task.
And this brilliantly illustrates the desperate, almost humorous lengths we'll go to just to avoid looking at a blank page. The text explicitly mentions the cursor blinks a hole in the screen. The cursor is literally the antagonist here. It's demanding action. So instead of fighting it, the narrator flees into the physical world, seeking out any minor task that provides a tiny, immediate sense of completion. But of course, as we all know, that cursor is still there, just waiting. That brings us to our next phase, stage 2, the illusion of productivity, or tricking the mind. Moving into verse 2, the narrator shifts from aimless physical wandering to a much more dangerous trap: fake work. The text says the tabs are open, but my mind is shut. The wheels are turning, but they're stuck in a rut. This describes a totally false sensation of momentum. You know the feeling. Keeping a dozen browser tabs open makes you feel like you're doing research. Reorganizing that junk drawer makes you feel productive. It provides the illusion of being busy, while in reality you remain completely and utterly stuck.
But here's the kicker. Despite their immaculate, color-coded junk drawer, the reality of the task remains completely inescapable. It's personified so vividly in the text as a deadline that stares with judging eyes. I absolutely love this imagery. The deadline isn't just a date on a calendar anymore. It's practically a living entity in the room with them, watching them waste time, quietly judging all their fake productivity.
This rising guilt forces the narrator into our next phase, found in the bridge of the text, stage 3, monuments in the head, or the mental delay. So, the crucial point here is this intense contrast between the words later and tomorrow. The physical distraction has completely transformed into an intense session of mental negotiation. It's later again, it's tomorrow instead. These are those comforting lies we tell ourselves to justify pushing the work further and further away. We literally convince ourselves that tomorrow me will somehow possess superhuman focus and energy, completely ignoring the fact that today me is actively choosing to do absolutely nothing.
The text beautifully describes these mental gymnastics as building a monument inside of my head. Instead of doing the actual messy, difficult work, the procrastinator expends all their creative energy building grandiose but totally invisible monuments of good intentions in their own mind. They're planning the perfect essay, the flawless project, the ultimate presentation, all while typing exactly 0 words. It really is a masterpiece of avoidance.
Now, as these mental monuments are being built, the real world keeps turning, bringing us to stage 4, the time paradox, the ticking motor. This repeating chorus acts as the relentless engine of the narrator's anxiety. The text states, "The clock is a motor, the gears are greased, the more I wait, the more time's increased." This defines the perverse reality of procrastination, what we're calling the time paradox. You'd think doing nothing makes time stand still, right? But actually, Inaction somehow makes our perception of time accelerate out of control. The longer you put it off, the faster the clock seems to tick.
This repeating chorus builds a terrifying escalation of panic. Throughout the text, the chorus repeats, but the time marker actually changes. First, evening's coming. Then, midnight's coming. Finally, morning's coming. The timeline brutally progresses, relentlessly stripping away the narrator's chances of success. It's a brilliant structural choice in the text, acting like a tightening vice on the narrator's psyche. You can practically feel the panic rising with every single tick of the clock.
Which plunges our narrator straight into Stage 5, one frantic hour, the sprint and defeat.
By verse 3, the pacing becomes entirely frantic. The text notes, the birds are chirping, the sky's gray. The narrator realizes they've successfully wasted another whole day, leaving them with exactly one frantic hour. Just 1 hour of sweat and regret to try and accomplish the impossible before the morning sun fully rises. Those long, luxurious hours they had the day before? Gone. Evaporated into a single, highly pressurized digit.
During this final sprint, the narrator describes themselves as trying to catch what hasn't happened yet. This really highlights the ultimate futility of the panic sprint. You cannot retroactively capture the time you willingly threw away watering ferns and sharpening pencils. You can't bank time, and you certainly can't catch it once it flies past you. The physics of time simply don't allow for it, no matter how ridiculously fast you type in that last hour.
And that brings us to the abrupt, deadpan outro of our text. Stage 6, the time is up, the inevitable conclusion.
This is where all that frantic, sweating energy completely flatlines. Even at the very last second, facing total defeat, the narrator is still hopelessly bargaining with themselves. They whisper, "I'll start now," only to immediately defer it again with, "in a minute." It just goes to show that procrastination isn't just a bad habit, it's a deeply ingrained mental reflex. Even when the ship is literally sinking, they're still looking for a way to delay bailing the water.
The poem ends with these two blunt, devastating sentences. The time is up, and I didn't finish. There's no triumphant last-minute save here. There's no miraculous extension. The consequence of their delay is absolute and unforgiving. It's presented as a final realization of total failure. It completely strips away all the humor of the junk drawer and the unburning candle, leaving only the stark, cold reality of a missed deadline.
Ultimately, this text is a mirror held up to our own worst work habits. So, the next time you find yourself staring at an unburning candle instead of working, or convincing yourself that you just really need to color code your digital files right this second, ask yourself, are you controlling your time, or are you just greasing the gears of the time paradox? What invisible monuments are you building inside your head while your deadline stares you down? Take control of the cursor before the morning sun rises. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope you take these lessons back to your own desk.